I am so proud to introduce Jelisa and very happy to have her present to you all today. She has over 12 years of experience working in education. Her work has been driven by the desire to positively impact others through personal and professional development. Jelisa believes when we work toward improving our soul, our mind, will, and emotions, we're better equipped to show up authentically, advocate for ourselves, and appreciate our own and others' contributions. Jelisa holds a master's in educational leadership from Old Dominion University and is DEI workplace certified through the USF Muma College of Business. She currently sits on the board of the African American Council for Excellence, our employee resource group here at the University of Phoenix, Ohio Project 311, and Warren Youngstown Urban League Young Professionals. I told you all she was qualified to lead this presentation, so I'll turn it over to you now, Jelisa. Excited to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tandra, for that beautiful introduction. And thank you so much, Craig, for that mindfulness moment, because, you know, when you present, sometimes you get the jitters. And so trying to be at ease when I present so I don't talk too fast, so I can definitely get this party started for you all, because we're going to have a party here. You're going to see me dancing a little bit because I'm excited about this conversation. And I'm looking forward to you being a part of this conversation and contributing your feedback, your insights, and your perspective. So if you were here last time, our session was on about microaggressions, which specifically refers to commonplace verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate either hostile, derogatory, or negative attitudes towards stigmatized or culturally marginalized groups. Well, today we're covering what I believe is the foundation to minimizing conflict as we navigate this ever-changing world. So before we get started, I do want to ask you a question, and I want you to let me know the answer in the chat. How would you define success? So go ahead, give me a word, a phrase, your own personal definition of how you define success. In the meantime, I'm just going to groove over here in my own mental music and allow you all to give me some feedback. Awesome, awesome. I look forward to you all sharing complete, thriving, comfort. I love those. Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, accomplishing goals, positive morale, graduation. That's very specific. Yes, growth, content, the ability to take care of family and self. I love those. I love those. And at the foundation, when we're talking about success, when we think of like the Webster Dictionary, it's the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. So I see a lot of different perspectives, and I thank you so much for your contributions. But I'm hoping that even as we go through this conversation, you may change your perspective about success as we're talking about emotional intelligence and as we're talking about belonging. Next slide. Okay, so our agenda for today's session is defining emotional intelligence, understanding the components of emotional intelligence, also known as emotional quotient, addressing how our human experience factors into this discussion, and considering how we create a sense of belonging. So if you are ready for this emotional intelligence reboot, you are in the right place. And I want you to do me a favor and put a 1 in the chat to let me know that you're here, that you're engaged, that you're excited, and that you're looking forward to this conversation. Awesome. I love to see the 1. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, next slide. So emotional intelligence. It is a term that was first coined in 1990 by researchers John Mayer and Peter Salabi. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, but was later popularized by psychologist Daniel Goleman. So as you can see on the screen, it's the ability to understand what drives our and others' intentions to work more cooperatively. So from the research that I gathered from different perspectives on emotional intelligence, because as we know, as things evolve and advance, different people put different things into the conversation to make for a more well-rounded, perspective on emotional intelligence. So it's a skill of discernment, if you will, to perceive the countenance and or expression of others and respond accordingly. It's to wholeheartedly, let's just say with sincerity and with a genuine understanding and navigate the ebbs and flows of human connection. It's a process of, as you can see on the screen, recognizing how you and others show up, reasoning with your why, meaning your intentions, your purpose, and responding with thoughtful interaction. It's kind of a type and shadow of self-mastery, because when you are aware of how you show up, you have ability to master those things in how you deal with life and how you deal with situations. So if anything to remember, if you want to maintain your understanding of emotional intelligence, think of recognizing, reasoning, and responding. Okay, next slide. So 5 components of emotional intelligence. Now, I will preface this and say, when I originally came across the concept of emotional intelligence, I only saw 4 components. And then as of late, as I said, information evolves, information changes, different people give their perspective and input. The new added component was motivation. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I wanted to preface it with that because you might have seen 4 components, and then you might have seen 5 as well. So the first component, when we're talking about setting a foundation for emotional intelligence or building your foundation for emotional intelligence, it's self-awareness. And self-awareness is recognizing and knowing your emotions, meaning your strengths and weaknesses. I don't know about you, but I have written down, because sometimes I have a tendency to get in my own way and have some self-sabotaging moments to where I need to write down, okay, what are the great things that I've accomplished? And then also, okay, well, what are the weaknesses that I have, and how can I delegate, or how can I use that as an opportunity for growth? Another thing you can think of when you're talking about self-awareness is knowing your triggers, knowing how you might react to something and how you might hold something in, or what caused you to maybe have sweaty palms or a fast-paced heart rate. And then also your learning style, how you acquire information and how you understand. The second component to emotional intelligence is self-regulation, or in other words, self-control, your ability to manage and control impulses and moods. So as I mentioned before, how you handle stress is one way that you can identify your ability to self-regulate. Are you holding it in and then exploding? Or are you practicing mindfulness or journaling or listening to music or exercising to help manage that stress you may be experiencing? And so this is where we get into the add-in, that extra component. If you're more familiar with the 4 components of emotional intelligence, it's internal motivation. And that's your intrinsic drive to meet personal intentions. So what I've come to understand is motivation, as it pertains to emotional intelligence, being lumped into the original 4, it's kind of like a go-between of your individual self, that self-awareness and self-regulation, to the group, how you empathize and practice your social skills. It's that balance between your intentions as an individual and then the impact that you make as it pertains to your connection or your relatability to others, okay? So empathy or social awareness is your ability to recognize and understand others' motivations and emotions. So this can look like your ability to read the room, your ability to discern kind of like, okay, the energy is a little off, there's a heaviness that I'm feeling, because it's one thing, without being too morbid, you probably don't want to go into a funeral laughing and giggling and jumping up and down and dancing now, unless that was the person's wishes. They want to have a party and they want you to be a part of it. But that's probably not the way you want to show up into a space like that. So being able to read the room is what you would consider empathy or social awareness. And then the last component is social skills, or in other words, relationship management. And that's our ability to manage relationships and build networks. So I like to think of 3 aspects that are involved when we're talking about relationship management. One, your ability to communicate. I'm going to tell you up front, I love alliteration, so bear with me. Communication is one. How you are receptive to constructive criticism is 2. And then your ability to implement conflict resolution. So again, that's communication, criticism, and conflict. So when you're talking about your social skills, those are usually some of the things that you deal with when you're talking about building relationship management. Next slide. Before I go into the depths of this, I want to make sure that everybody's still engaged, everybody's still part of the conversation. Go ahead and put a 2 in the chat for me, and I'm going to dance while you do that. Awesome. Great. I'm so glad. Okay. So the human experience, we all have it. We all experience it. It's how we respond to the world around us. And it plays a huge factor in our ability to develop emotionally, okay? And specifically our emotional intelligence. And what's great is that we each experience the world physically, cognitively, socially, culturally, and emotionally. Personally, I added spiritually because some people do experience the world from whatever they believe as far as their divinity or their higher power. So that's a component of the human experience as well. And so when we break this down a little bit, we can relate to one another using our 5 senses, our ability for sight, touch, smell, taste, hear. Now, I'm also aware that there are some abilities or disabilities that we have to consider in this part and how we relate to the world as well. Our language, that's our cognitive ability, our thinking, reasoning, remembering, imagining, learning words. We can also relate to the world and our commonalities, the way we interact socially. So that could be by music. I personally like a little bit of R&B. Sometimes I like a little country. And so we can connect in that way. For those who are sports fans, you know, I can't help it, but I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. That is my last name. So I'm sorry, no shots fired to anyone. And then we have cultural ideas, customs, and social behavior of our society, which could be traditions, our foods, dances, certain rituals that we do. And then our feelings, though emotions are really based out of experience, and there's like no real clear definition of emotion, our experiences helps us give us a means to encompass all the facets of life. So we all have felt at some point in time rejection. We all have felt happiness. We all have felt some element of anxiety in life, and then peace. So those are just a few things that we all, as human beings, have experienced. Next slide. Okay, so I love this quote because I feel like it's a good summation of everything I talked about and how it relates to our human experience, emotional intelligence, because when you really think about it, if you don't care about me as a person, then it's hard for people to be receptive to what you have to say. So people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if I wanted to have a conversation with some, whether it be me implementing the relationship management, it's a conversation of conflict that I need to address, or something of constructive criticism that I need to give perspective on, someone is going to be more receptive of me coming to the heart of the situation, looking at it from, oh, this is what you did great. I'm so happy you were a part of this experience. And then say, however, I would think if you went out about it this way, it would be better, versus the jugular, you did a horrible job. This was a failure. People are going to be much more receptive to the love that you have, the heart that you have toward the situation versus the jugular. So keep that in mind, because caring goes a long, long way. And I'm sure you all can relate. Next slide. Okay, so as we think about the summation of all of this, bringing this all together, as we look at emotional intelligence as the foundational piece to all we've talked about, and its reminder of humanity, we can create belongingness by extending comfort, making connection, and acknowledging contributions. We can do that even now. Again, with the foundation of emotional intelligence and reminder of our humanity, we can create belongingness by extending comfort, making connections, and acknowledging contributions. Furthermore, even beyond this, we can propel this intention, our intentions of creating belonging, by showing appreciation, gratitude, being very aware of how people are contributing their perspective, their insights, and how they go about the world, supporting with advocacy, showing up for people, being their ally, being able to speak on their behalf in a sense where they're not in a space or place that you may have access to, being able to speak about them where, let's just say you're in the C-suite and you know of someone that's in your department that, man, this person is missing out on the conversation. They should be a part, being that advocate for that person. And then activating the change in which you want to see. Every bit of change starts with our individual selves. If we want others externally to change, we first have to really change who we are. We have to have a readiness for change. And I like to look at it in 5 components. And as Tandra mentioned, I'm an author. And so in my book, I talk about readiness for change, where we have to release the old things, the old habits, sometimes people's opinions, sometimes our wanting and desire to control things, so that we can embrace the newness of life that is offered to us. And then we have to affirm what's true about who we are, our identity, our purpose. And then we have to have a sense of discipline. How are we going to make sure we implement this so that it's consistent? And then yielding to what life has to offer, being okay to not fully be in control in everything, but letting life's ebbs and flows take us to where we need to go. And then, and only then, we can see that building wholehearted relationships with ourselves and others creates capacity for acceptance. Again, then when we see that building wholehearted relationships with ourselves and others creates capacity for acceptance. So that concludes my presentation. You can take the slides down. And so I want us to revisit this conversation about success, because you all gave a lot of great perspectives about success, what that means to do everything from graduation, everything from family, finances, and being in a certain place and space in life that contributes to your success. So I would love, love, love to hear, now that we've gone through what it means to be emotionally intelligent, how it relates to our human experience and what it means to belong, how you now look at success. So if I have any takers, you can go ahead, raise your hand and come off mute.